From its opening scene, The Last Jedi was
No. Connor, we gotta talk about this one.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Geekery Collective's most important podcast, but most importantly, this is a video about The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. We're reviewing it, we're talking about it, a little fireside chat between the boys.
Yeah.
Let's start things off with blanket statement. Do we think you should see The Last Jedi?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, this is not baby's first Star Wars. Mm-hmm. You need to know Star Wars to see this movie.
I would say that you'd probably be able to enjoy it without it, but you'd still be just lost.
You would be. I think you would be absolutely, completely confused the entire time if you didn't know Star Wars.
I would honestly say if you haven't seen Star Wars, The Force Awakens might not be a bad place to start.
Yeah, The Force Awakens is baby's first Star Wars in a lot of ways. Yeah. It's a really good movie. It's very simple, and it's a lot of fun. But, I mean, let's get this out of the way first. Is The Last Jedi swept almost everything that The Force Awakens started under the rug.
Yes.
Really.
Before did we already say this was a spoiler-heavy thing?
Let's get real deep into these spoilers, because personally, I can't talk about this movie without giving really important shit away.
One of the first things I need to say is, it require you to have knowledge of the movie.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, Rian Johnson clearly grew up inspired by Star Wars, as many directors were, and we live in a time that this era can exist. This is happening with games too, where fans of things are able to pass the torch. And so I was really excited because I knew this wasn't just going to be Empire 2.0. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have worked if it was Empire 2.0. The Force Awakens is the highest grossing movie of all time, but it was also had a lot of backlash. As if any Star Wars movie hasn't. There hasn't been a Star Wars movie ever that didn't receive a lot of backlash, which is weird. But
even the original one, the Force or A New Hope, or just Star Wars as it was called in 1977, it received a lot of backlash upon its initial release because people thought it was too violent to be a kids movie. Yeah,
I did not.
A lot of people.
Here we are now.
Right,
dudes getting cut in half and holes in their heads. Yeah. Let's kind of just work our way through the movie here.
Okay, all right.
I like the beginning, but I don't think it was as strong as most Star Wars movies start out with. But I did think it was really good.
I liked it as well.
I do like that it did, like right off the bat, it did kind of come in with the humor from Poe.
Right.
I like that. Let's talk about that for a second, actually, because that's a big point of contention right now amongst a lot of
people. Think it's too funny.
They think it's too funny because they feel as though Hux. You wouldn't talk to Hux like that, but I liked it. I liked it a lot because of the stance it was taking. Because when you look at it, this is one thing that I really want to talk about, actually. Hux is a space Nazi. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Hux and the First Order are Nazis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Poe is taking the idea and taking the stance that he's a fascist. He deserves zero respect. The fact that he was just dunking on him and just being a dick. I loved that, and it made me extremely happy because it reminded me of every time that I've talked to a real life fascist. But
I just want to point out, I don't at any point in time think the movie was too funny.
No,
The Force Awakens I thought had way more humor than this movie did.
It did.
I think it was just at the beginning was a little front heavy with the humor, and so some people were kind of like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I think the real problem with little things like that is that a movie like this is heavily under the microscope and open for judgment for a lot of people because. I mean, Disney wants every human being alive to go see Star Wars.
Right.
So
and that opens
you're going to get this huge group of people finding everything wrong with it because they are never satisfied with things. But I was talking to Connor about this before we started rolling. That I watched Revenge of the Sith the other day, and it made me really sad because I remember that feeling of like we're never going to get Star Wars again. Like a lot of us were like genuinely concerned, like, oh wow, this is it. This is all Star Wars we're going to get from now on.
My mom cried because of it.
and that was a scary thought. Looking back now, how wonderful of a place we're in.
Right.
That even if there is a Star Wars movie that's not good, Disney's going to keep making it. Maybe don't drop the whole, like, Star Wars needs to die out, because you didn't want it to in the first place. You don't want it to now.
Right.
Just don't go see it if you don't want to see Star Wars. It's fine. Disney isn't going to care. I can promise you that. Yeah. Let's talk Leia.
The space wizardry.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying that this was really weird. And I didn't understand that at all. The simple theory that people use the Force to make bodies fly. Mm-hmm. Why can't you use your own? Why can't you use the Force to make your own body fly?
Yeah,
simple as that. Star Wars isn't like a science-heavy series,
so we don't sound in space in this movie,
right?
So.
Space swords and space magic, it's obviously not grounded, pun intended. But I don't think that needs read into very, very hard.
I did think that she was going to die in that scene.
Yeah, I did too.
I think
this
is a beautiful send-off, and then it's weird how that was already, it had to have already been in this film.
It's a very, now we have no idea what they're going to do with her. And clearly, they had much more in mind for her than any of the other OG characters.
It's very unfortunate because I loved her in this.
Yeah, this was the best she'd ever been.
Loved Leia in this. It was very sad. It was a very sad feeling leaving that, being like, we're never going to see Princess Leia again.
Yeah.
There's a couple of scenes where, like, you see her, like, her hand specifically, and, like, to me, I was like, that was added later. Like, that was an emotional thing that, like, was not required whatsoever, and they put that in to honor her, like, afterward.
Very, very emotional. Not to kind of derail it too hard, but I think we should upfront talk about the characterizations of everyone in the movie before everything else. Specifically Poe. Poe Dameron had a great character arc in this. I loved every scene that he was in. He was my favorite character from The Force Awakens. And his intro and his relationship with Leia, I enjoyed a lot. Rey was much better in this than she was in The Force Awakens. But the standout, obviously, Kylo Ren.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, hands down.
The thing that I was borderline preaching for the years up until this movie was that The Force Awakens makes Kylo Ren seem very immature. And in a lot of ways he is, but there's so much potential just like frothing at the mouth there, because he's an incredible actor, but also the character is very interesting. Sith, just like Jedi, are not black and white, and Sith start from being...
Before the commenters say it, he's not Sith, so...
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
But I mean, that is where he sees himself.
Right.
And Sith, they are changed, they're converted. Jedi are kind of a different story in that regard. And so you never see Sith question... that's what was so weird about Revenge of the Sith, was that... you never can tell from Anakin that there's crazy moral dilemma of like, do I believe the Jedi? Do I believe the Sith? That never really comes across very strongly. And this does, and that's because Adam Driver is a fantastic actor, and also Kylo Ren is a well thought out, well realized character. And it's obvious in The Force Awakens to me, but to your average moviegoer, I feel like, and that's not to really downplay anybody, but I feel like to most people who don't really look into movies, you don't see anything but a whiny guy with a cool lightsaber who just throws a fit, And The Last Jedi takes what you think about him, like everything, and it turns it on its head. Really, it
does it with pretty much the whole movie
from the get-go, though. The first scene that you see Snoke, he's making fun of him for the helmet, and the helmet was a big deal in The Force Awakens, and the first scene, one of the first scenes Kylo has, he destroys the helmet.
Yep.
And
I think it's a very powerful...
I think that was that was one of the choices of many. I thought, this is cool. I love that we're going so bold with this. Let's talk about the things that stood out to us the most. Because number one, I saw this movie the day it came out, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it for this is going on 4 days now. I absolutely cannot stop thinking about this movie. And it was because I felt so many things over the last few days, and it had to gestate, and it had to dawn on me how I really felt about it, because it's so traumatizing in a way for your regular Star Wars fan to experience this movie. What it does to you, it's fascinating, to say the least. You know, everybody has these built-up theories because that's what JJ does. He makes the mystery box, and he makes you think what's going to happen. He makes you wonder all these things. And Rian Johnson and Disney said, no. Yeah. We're not doing that. And so everything you thought you knew about Snoke, who cares?
Right.
Everything you thought you knew about Rey's parents, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Everything you thought you knew about Kylo's past, we'll get to that at some point. What matters is Star Wars is never going to be the same from here on out. Now, that is depending on if succeeding directors respect the decisions made in The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
right.
Now, because JJ could go back to doing crazy, silly Episode 9, and it would make The Last Jedi look like a really stupid movie.
Yeah.
And
Good.
And the main thing that bothered me about it was because this is so incredible, and all the choices made are so bold, and like not anything you would expect from your average Star Wars fan who would make a movie to do. These choices rely on, it's a setup. I mean, it's completely a setup from start to end. We'll take a little break. We'll take a little break on our podcast. I like that. So we're talking about Kylo, and that his character is much more realized now. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I knew they would take care of him. Everything that happened here relies on the conclusion to this story, to me, because they've now made him so fascinating as a character, this internal conflict of wanting to be powerful and you know, as any evil character is, in his eyes, he sees himself as right. What he does, but what he's done is terrible, unforgivable in a lot of ways. But interestingly, my thing is, I don't want him to just sacrifice himself and die in Episode 9.
No.
I want him and Rey together to find balance in the Force. Because the only way Rey is significant in the grand scheme of things is if she is the chosen one. I mean, Luke Skywalker, was he the chosen one, really? I mean, who is the chosen one, really?
I think that's kind of the point of this new trilogy, is the idea
there is
that
no
chosen one.
Right.
I like that a lot. Kylo Ren was great in this. I loved every scene that he was in. He was incredible. He's such a well fleshed out character. And I loved him. He was the strongest character from Episode 7.
I thought so too, yeah.
And it's good that they gave a lot of screen time to the new characters in this.
Oh my gosh, Rose.
Rose is great.
Yeah.
She was really good. I liked her a lot.
I was not expecting her character at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't watch any of the trailers, so I didn't know there was anyone else going to be new in it, and so I was just taken aback by that.
I mean, I was excited for Porgs, but that was about it.
Oh my god, I love Porgs so much.
They're so cute.
I was so ready to be like, this is gonna suck.
Yeah, I'm indifferent on Porgs. They weren't annoying by any means, but they're not. I don't know, because I've never been crazy about Ewoks either, and they're basically the new Ewoks.
They're less annoying because they didn't take down the entirety of the Empire.
And so
they just kind of hang out.
They were just there, and they didn't take anything away from it.
They're part of the environment.
Exactly.
That's why I like them.
And they were adorable, especially the ones
cute.
around Chewie in the cockpit.
Yeah. Speaking of that island, let's talk Luke. Luke Skywalker's in this.
So I think it speaks really strongly that the first thing he does is take that lightsaber that we spent like 20 minutes flying around at the end of The Force Awakens. He's like, meh.
Yep.
Kind of signifying like the rest of the movie just kind of throws everything away. Like, you think all this stuff has significance, but you know what? It doesn't really matter. What matters is what you do with what you're given.
Yeah.
Hope comes from you. You have to do what you can with it, as opposed to like, oh yeah, your parents were rich, so you'll be rich, or your parents were powerful, so you'll be powerful. It's all this expectation when like that.
It comes from you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll let you guys start this Luke Skywalker talk, because this is my main thing that I wanted to.
I loved Luke in this. The evolution of Luke as a character from when we last saw him in Jedi was fascinating. it grew upon the idea that Luke has this inner conflict. It touched on that and it delved into that because I have always viewed Luke as the perfect gray Jedi. Mm-hmm. To see him making mistakes in this movie and to see him being human and to see him being something more than just this legend, than just this idealized Jedi was great, and I loved it. And it's everything that I've ever wanted to see out of a Jedi Master, Luke Skywalker. The stuff between him and Rey was fascinating.
I think Rey really challenged him in ways that that he wasn't ready for or expecting, obviously, because he had no way of knowing she was coming there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
I mean, I guess there could be an argument for that since he's, supposed to be like the most powerful Jedi. He could probably sense something.
But he says in the movie he cut himself off from the Force.
That's true.
So,
she says that, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, I don't have a lot else to say about it. There were nuances in his performance that I think we could not have gotten 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because Mark Hamill has progressed as an actor so much since he last took up the mantle of this role.
I would say that when he goes to the tree with the flame thingy, I must have blinked or something, and I heard the Joker for a split second, and I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Like, that put me in the wrong mood for this. But then, it just kind of came back when you see Yoda. That came out of nowhere.
That came out of nowhere, yeah.
That was, I thought, okay, they're just, screwing with us? Is this going to be and then, he's full-on interacting with Yoda.
Yoda being there and puppet Yoda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love this practical Yoda. It wasn't
that entire part, I think, was pure movie magic. It was pure Star Wars magic.
Absolutely.
To me, Star Wars has a feeling. Mm-hmm. It's not really so much a movie series. It's not... Star Wars is a feeling that you get when you watch it. And to me, Star Wars has always been summed up in one scene. That feeling... For me, has always been summed up in the scene from Episode 4 when Luke is staring at the twin setting suns. Mm-hmm. And there were 3 scenes in this movie that gave me that exact same feeling as when I saw that for the first time, and the scene with him and Yoda was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I'll touch base on the other 2 when we get to them, but Yoda's inclusion in on the island was great. And he was just like how you remember him in Empire and Jedi. It was like he hadn't changed at all, and I loved that.
I wouldn't say that they hadn't changed at all, because I think he's progressed definitely.
Because his ideals fundamentally changed to destroy the Jedi for what they stood for.
I love that Yoda's calling him out and was like, you keep looking to the horizon, you're never in the moment, knocks him on the head, that's awesome. I also love the symbolism of Yoda having to know that the ancient Jedi texts were not in the tree anymore and lighting it on fire, because Luke doesn't need to know that they're not in there, because he needs to let go of it.
Yeah.
Knowing full well that they're on the ship with Rey.
Mm-hmm. I have to say that I have a fundamental issue with this part of the movie still, and it still has been one of the main reasons I can't stop thinking about this movie.
I think you and I agree on this thing that you're about to say.
That is the fact that unequivocally Luke Skywalker is one of, if not the greatest heroes in movie history. Mm-hmm. It is almost not up for debate. I don't think anybody could ever question. He is cinema greatness in his title. You know what that name stands for. It is nothing but hero. Obviously flawed, as any hero is, but his journey in the original trilogy is so monumental and historic. And Mark Hamill has a very curious story, because his career, he has, since Star Wars, been debatably the most underrated actor of his generation and ours, with his voice work and everything. He is so talented and so wise and so interesting. I thought that the approach to Luke was great, and I think it makes the most sense. One of my favorite parts of Episode 8 is when he says that the Jedi are most known for failure.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my... if you know me or follow, I've always been a huge... a fan of Star Wars, obviously, but I always critique the idea of what the Jedi are, because they are way too smug, and they're too quote-unquote peaceful. They never act when they need to act, and it's been their downfall for all time. it makes complete sense for Luke to be in this position. And I don't blame anybody's decision makings for making it there. But what I have an issue with is I don't think this should have been Luke Skywalker's last living, breathing movie.
Yeah,
I don't think he should have gone out as exerted all of his energy from a force projection. Sidebar, force projections are really, really cool and a super geeky side of Star Wars that's never really been approached too much. And it was a huge, huge deal in this movie.
Oh my god, I love that.
And
so
I love that aspect.
I love even the one cut in here, the detail that like you see Kylo move his foot and it moves the salt aside.
Exactly.
And then Luke moves his foot and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And you're like going back, it just oh man. Sorry.
So
nerdy moment.
Incredible. Yeah.
So my issue here is that I think there is much to be said about how underrated Mark Hamill is and how underappreciated he has been over the years. And to go out how Luke Skywalker did, I have a lot of issues with that. And I give it the benefit of the doubt considering, again, the payout has to be worth it in Episode 9. If it's not, there is a lot of problems here because I think one of the greatest heroes in movie history did not deserve how he was treated in this. And that's also from the fact that you can go back a couple of years and hear that Mark Hamill had lots of issues and he had lots of disagreements with everybody on this character. And that, to me, there is something to be said, like, maybe he's underrated because maybe he doesn't make the best decisions and maybe he's gone so far because people have made the decisions, understanding what's best for this character and stuff like that. That's a whole argument in itself, but it speaks of volumes that he had many, many issues. I mean, he said, I fundamentally disagree on everything you think about Luke Skywalker. He said that to Rian Johnson before they started this movie. Yeah. Now, he obviously supports this movie, and he's not like he didn't do this movie handcuffed and nobody forced him to do it. But I think there's something to be said about the lack of respect for a character that is so powerful and so well respected in movie history. And I don't know. I need a lot of time to think about that. And
so before we get into the Luke thing, I will say one aspect of this, I think it might be a selfish thing for Rian Johnson to have done, but I think maybe he wanted to have control over Luke's fate and not leave that up to someone else for episode
because
9.
the way he went out was beautiful. I will give them that.
It was, but it lacked impact because we just saw this and he was like, and I love the see you around kid. As soon as he said that to Kylo and then vanished, I was like, episode 9. It's going down that. We're gonna see some sort of really something great from that. And then immediately he's just kind of like, well, I'm too tired. I'm just gonna
if that had happened after him, a much bigger deal. And there's no one who can debate that Luke Skywalker is undeserving of this massive final battle or anything. Mark Hamill would probably say that too. I just wanted to go on record and say that I think that was really disappointing. And
that's the biggest problem I have with movies.
And that's probably my biggest issue with the movie, in that it's great that somebody respects him so much to give him that ending, because that ending isolated is one of the most beautiful things Star Wars has ever shown, but
in context, it's just
it's very, very hard to take in after everything, and how quick it all happens. Another reason why it takes days to understand what you just saw, because there's just so much going on there.
Also, I thought it was super odd that the moment he enters the the rebel base on Crate, there's no audio cue, nothing is pointing you to him. He's just kind of there, and no one seems to care. Yeah, he just kind of everyone's just that's oh yeah, good old Luke.
Yeah,
no one's like Luke. Yeah. I mean,
I chalk that up to most of them not knowing who he is.
Yeah,
because
I will say in the movie's defense, it was that moment after he was there that made the entire galaxy. Because if you remember the ending scene where they're talking about that. It was after that moment where everybody's like, Luke Skywalker. Again,
that's
fine.
true.
I understand
I mean,
that, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
You'd think that Leia would at least be like...
No, she was just like...
Yeah. Luke, I changed my hair.
Yeah.
And like, that was fine. It was cute.
It was a good scene, yeah. It was a good coming home, but
just,
yeah.
You know, they look over, and then he's just there. And then, like, 3PO is...
Do you think maybe she wasn't so up in arms because she knew it wasn't really him?
Yeah,
she knew 100% knew.
Yeah, I mean, she had to because she's a Force user, so,
right.
like...
So
my thought of that was, okay, so no one else can see him. It's just them because they've been playing off that the whole time. Mm-hmm. But then you see him literally like walk out there, and I'm like, that has to take a lot of energy from him to do a Force projection, like for all these people to see.
Yeah,
I disagree with you guys completely, wholeheartedly.
Not
disagree
surprised.
with you guys because the main takeaway I had from this movie was this was a movie about failure. This is a movie about a failure on the side of the Resistance. This was a movie about failure in Ben. This was a movie about Rey's failure. This was a movie about Poe Dameron's failure, Finn's failure. Everyone failed in this movie, including Luke.
I think it's really refreshing, to be real honest.
And that is why Luke needed to die. Storytelling-wise, that's why he needed to die.
Here's my only thing with that, is that Luke already went through that so many times before.
Right.
And that goes back to my thing of, does he deserve it? You know what I mean? In the context of this movie, I feel like, you know, not being in love with the Star Wars movies for decades and decades, there's an argument to be made there, because in terms of any other movie, that same kind of character, this arc makes complete sense. But we're talking about, you know, one of the most beloved heroes in movie history, and he was so elaborately teased in The Force Awakens. And my biggest issue here is that it's not what any of us expected, which is okay, but it's also not what he wanted, and that bothers me too. What you're saying is completely true in the sense of, like, I would say any movie, any character, the same context, this sacrifice makes complete sense. But again, it darts back to the elephant in the room that is, this is Luke Skywalker we're talking about.
Why? Okay, why not save this for Episode 9? Like, take that same way that he went out and put that in Episode 9. I feel like it would have more of an impact. I do think it's brave of them to do it in Episode 8 because no one's expecting that.
The sentiment is very appreciated in a sense,
But just why not just hold off on that until middle of 9?
This isn't Luke's story anymore. And I think that's what everyone is trying to grasp a hold of, is this trilogy is not their story.
And I've been more open to that than anybody, but that's not to say...
You know what? Okay, so that does elevate things a little bit, because, you know, at the end you do see, like, the entire cast is now different. Everyone who was there, sans Chewie and Leia, is gone. And it's just an entirely new Star Wars, which is fine. It's still Skywalker bloodline because of Kylo. But I think it would have had... I don't know. I feel like...
It gives you a lot of mixed emotions, but the thing that I liked about it is the movie's representative of failure. When has failure felt good?
Right.
Okay.
But that's, I mean, you know, that's what makes Empire so powerful, is Empire has severe consequences. And, you know, at the time, people were like, Han Solo's dead, you know, and all this, you know, everybody failed. And
you know what? I will probably see Luke in...
We will see him. And that's the thing.
Well, yeah,
as
a Jedi.
There's still... It goes back to what I keep saying, is that all relies on Episode 9 having complete and utter care and respect for this character, you know? Let's not dwindle too much on Luke here.
I don't want to, like, because I know...
I had to get it off my chest because this was a big deal for me.
This has been a big deal with me, too, because I knew that I was going to be the odd one out here. I knew that I am fighting an uphill battle here, but I loved their decision on what to do with Luke in this movie. And that scene, his final scene, is so beautiful. It was one of those three scenes that I was talking
absolutely,
about.
Because of the Tatooine, the two sons, and like so when the first time he looks up, there's like a on the projector, whatever it was, I don't know what it was, but there's like a speck in the middle of the sun. I was like, who is coming to get him?
Yeah, that was on ours too. That was on ours too.
Oh, okay, so it is in the movie.
Okay,
right.
I don't think I noticed. I might have been too far away for that.
Other scene, which is, I think, has gone criminally under talked about. I've only seen one other person talk about this, is the hyperspace scene. The light.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
I get chills thinking about it every time.
It is beautiful.
Yes.
That is because we live in an era
There's
where
so much to talk about this.
CGI is used for everything. Is used for climactic battles. That everything feels the same, and no one's really doing something that looks gorgeous. And that was beautiful. It was
everything that can be said about that. I think it goes back to Rian Johnson's, like, a lot of his influences for making this movie for some reason were a lot of old samurai movies, and this is
Kurosawa.
that's because that's what inspired Star Wars.
well, right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that hasn't inspired Star Wars for the last two decades. But
I think that's why I liked this one so much more.
But it is totally the classic, the slash and the dramatic pause of the effect of what's happened, and that was awe-inspiring. It was
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
It's the final showdown from Yojimbo is what that was clearly inspired by, or was it? That's something that the return to form with that is something that I've been wanting for a while, because the first Star Wars is just the Hidden Fortress, Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. They are exactly the same movie. The plot is just lifted from the Hidden Fortress. It's about a wandering samurai and a missing princess and two droids or two peasants in the Hidden Fortress that stumble upon it, and even the main enemy samurai looks exactly like Darth Vader. Like, it's the exact same movie. But
I've seen that figure.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. I think Star Wars takes a lot of other influences and makes it its own thing, and I enjoyed it. But
yeah, I just think that scene was totally. That's what I pictured the entire time, was the samurai slash. And the moment before the guy falls over and he dies was the ships resonating.
One other scene that was beautiful, wasn't even really a scene, it was a set. Snoke's room was incredible. Mm-hmm. I loved that. It was clearly a throwback to Palpatine. Mm-hmm. See, everyone's comparing this movie to Empire, but this movie felt a lot more like Jedi.
I see a lot of comparisons to Return of the Jedi.
It felt a lot more like Return of the Jedi.
It has, like, it seems like a love letter to all Star Wars movies.
Yeah, exactly. Snoke's room was great. The lightsaber fights in this were really good. Really good.
I just want to say they were not lightsaber fights.
Yeah, they weren't really lightsaber.
I have to go on record and say that was one of my problems. Was that there were no actual lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
That bugs me, but that fight was really, really cool, and it was really well done. It was well choreographed. I was, like, jumping for joy when Snoke died. Yeah. Because in my head, I was like, okay, this is it. Kylo will help Rey bring balance to the Force. It all starts here. And it didn't. And it was...
I love that misdirection.
It was, okay, now, nothing's changed for me other than my power.
Right.
I would like to see where that goes. I have to say it again. Kylo is an incredible character, and they are doing him an incredible disservice if all he does is just sacrifice himself so other people can live. Yeah. I don't know anybody who thinks that Kylo deserves to just die. Mm-hmm. I really don't, and that's interesting because in many, many ways he does. It would be too simple and too easy and predictable to just have him just sacrifice himself, and I don't know. I don't think that character arc deserves that.
Yeah, that would. I agree with you.
He's the pivotal moment that, in the end, when he and Rey still have that Force bond, that says to me they are the start of bringing balance to the Force. So one does not work without the other.
Right.
I would say that in speculation. It's purely speculation that there's no way he should die, sacrifice himself, punished.
Because then what's the opposite?
Right.
What's the opposition?
Right. So, yeah, I love that, and I thought that fight was really good. I thought all the action was really, really good. Mm-hmm. I was surprised how little there was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like it was very entertaining, and it seemed... like, there was more action than there was, I think, just because, like, the quality of the action when it comes on screen.
But this movie had a lot of downtime in the middle.
That's true.
A lot of downtime in the middle. There's a lot to be said about the casino segment.
Okay, so I know that you're gonna dog on it. That was one of my favorite scenes.
I liked it too a lot.
Because like as much as it feels like they just had to like have a departure to have another story, like I feel like that is an essential Star Wars thing. That's as close as we've gotten so far to feeling like something in the KOTOR universe, the Knights of the Old Republic universe.
The aesthetic, totally.
Yeah, the aesthetic, like it just feels Star Wars, like you were saying earlier, because you're in this scenario where there's no Jedi, there's no Sith, there's no like magical forces or whatever in this area, but it still feels inherently like it's a Star Wars universe set piece.
I appreciate what it did for Finn and Rose. I like what it did for that, and also what it did for the ending character.
Obviously, yeah.
I think that their motivation for it was really stupid, and I think it was and Benicio del Toro's character could have been played by fucking anybody, and his purpose was to open a door, and Rose was more important than her. I mean, that's not even stretching the truth. He got there and he opened a door, and that was all he did, and then he turned them in.
I loved Benicio del Toro.
I did too.
I thought he was great, and I felt like his character may have been a bit tacked on, but it's necessary to have that rogue in Star Wars. He's the classic Star Wars rogue. I mean, he's a character we've seen time and time again in this universe, and I love every time I see him.
Yeah, but it's just, if he is that classic character, then they didn't give him enough place.
I think he should have been. I think he deserves a little bit more screen time.
I think the character was fine. There's nothing wrong with the character. I just think, if he's a big deal, why was he in the movie for like 4 shots? If he isn't a big deal, why the fuck was he in the movie? If he, I don't know. I'm sure that he will come back in episode 9 and it will all make more sense. But I mean, the dude literally showed up to open a door and then peaced out. I like what he did with Finn. Like I said, I appreciate what that arc did because it helped Finn realize that everything is not black and white, just like how everybody learned this in this movie. But it just really bothered me once he left that I was like, that's all this is leading up to, and it was strange. It was really confusing to me.
I think it all really serves the story, and like. So it might seem like a departure if you're just looking at like, why did this happen? It happened because of all these miscommunications between everyone. It was a failure to communicate, so it was harping again on the failure theme. So had I can't remember her name, purple hair lady, the
Holdo.
Yeah. Holdo, there we go. Thank you. I keep wanting to say Halsey, and I'm like, no, that's not her name. When she didn't communicate to Poe what the plan was because she didn't need to appear like a hero, whatever. That caused him to. Send a ripple basically through everyone else, being like, panic, okay, well, we need to do something, and thus, leading them off-world and trying to do all these things. I think that like them getting the information from Maz Kanata was just kind of a stretch to keep Maz Kanata in there.
Yeah, she's a cool character. I love that character, but that
information didn't have to come from
totally
her.
Did not need to. Yeah,
it was still okay to be like, I like seeing her. It's cool.
And then there's this confusion like, how does Poe know her? How does Finn? Is Finn able to get it?
Right, exactly.
He says like 3 things to her in Force Awakens.
I think that character should have been Lando instead. I think it would have been cool to see Lando in this movie.
I think that would have been really rad.
I'm not sold that Lando just won't be in this trilogy.
I don't think he will be because they seem hell-bent on not putting him in these movies for some reason.
Yeah, so I just have to say, when we're wrapping things up here, that every Star Wars movie has problems.
Well, okay.
We wouldn't love them if they didn't. So my complaints here are out of respect for it, and the fact that I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a great movie. But every Star Wars movie has its flaws, and I think these are its flaws.
I don't necessarily think that those are flaws, though. Like, well, the story arc is just like that had to happen for all of these lessons to be learned. And for us to get to the end in those specific situations.
I really think after years passing and multiple viewings that you guys will not think that. I honestly think as time goes on that you guys will probably change your minds about that.
Maybe, but
I would love to be wrong.
I've changed my tune on all the Star Wars movies.
Exactly. And that's how I am. And I think there's a very strong possibility in a couple years I grow to appreciate that segment, but as of right now, I don't.
The only other major thing I wanted to talk about was the kind of pseudo-controversial scene of Luke attempting to kill Ben in his sleep.
I thought that was awesome.
I did too.
I didn't have any problem
That's
with that.
typical, like, as I was touching on earlier, Luke has always had this darkness inside of him. And he acknowledges that. He's like, it was gone like a fleeting shadow.
Yeah.
And then he woke up and got the wrong impression of it and was...
It's crazy this whole thing can really be tied to a miscommunication.
Yeah, exactly.
Again.
Yeah.
Just because there's lack of okay, I can't explain this in enough time to get out of this without you pulling your lightsaber, pulling the whole building down. Like that is insane because it is Luke's fault at that point.
Yeah.
Because he says all this stuff. But, I mean, if Snoke was already to him...
Yeah.
And I think that was awesome. And the idea of a Jedi Academy gets me so excited. Like, I know we'll never see that, but, like, it was cool enough just to see that one scene.
That is the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Maybe we'll see that in episode 9?
The broom at the end.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like that.
Why? That's great.
I liked it a lot.
I haven't seen any speculation about really doubting that scene. That to me is the best ending a Star Wars movie's ever had.
Absolutely.
I like that broom a lot.
That broom saber.
Yeah.
It says
that
a lot.
He pulls it to him with the Force and everything. I was
but
just
it's so subtle. It's so
is.
magical.
It's crazy how many people missed that.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people missed that.
A lot of people in the theater when I was watching it were going, "Did he just do what I think he did?"
Yeah,
and that was really
cool. I was like, "This fucking what?" Like,
and also the fact that he's holding the ring, signaling that what Poe said, that maybe he's the spark that lights the flame that dismantles the First Order, and that is from here on out. This is what changes Star Wars forever. From here on out, it's not who your bloodline is. It is deeper than that, I think, and it means that the Force, as so deep as it is connected through everyone. And that's why it could be anyone who's Force sensitive. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's what Star Wars needs from here going out. I don't think this means that we need Disney to market as anybody could be a Jedi or anybody could have the Force or stuff like that. I don't really think that is the direction Star Wars should be. While that would sell, I think that image of what Star Wars and what Force sensitive people could be would sell. I don't think that's really what Star Wars is. I think
the whole thing really is just about you can come from nothing and
But Rey's entire arc is I think I'm special. I think I'm meant for something. And Rey, now knowing that it could be anyone who's Force sensitive, Rey might not be anybody ever, and she might not be important at all. And her place in all this is still up for debate because we have a new generation of Force-sensitive people, and what makes her different from them now that we know that. None of them will get Jedi training.
That's not necessarily true. She's got the text.
Yeah, and but she has no master.
Yeah,
that's a huge deal, really. Having the text is interesting and it's a good point, but like Yoda said, page turners they are not.
At some point, Luke didn't have a master. That happened.
Yeah, and in Jedi, he taught himself.
Yeah.
And in Jedi, when he came back for Return of the Jedi, he had learned from his mistakes and became. So
there is definitely that whole path mirroring for Rey, in my opinion.
Right. And so. Yeah, I'm very interested to see where it goes from here on out. This is the biggest thing I want to say is how much I respect how different this is of a take from Star Wars from what it's used to. Just one movie in the saga
They
later.
took so many chances, and people are ripping it apart for it.
Yeah.
You weren't happy with The Force Awakens, and now you're not happy with this.
Yeah. I think those people need to take some time and maybe watch it again. But yeah, nothing needs to just die off because you don't like it. Yeah. You don't like the way it's going. And those people who hated on The Force Awakens and then don't like this, they have a severe problem with what they're getting themselves into. That's a lot of trouble for themselves.
The controversy surrounding this is ridiculous, and a large portion of it is rooted in the alt-right mentality of there not being enough white people in it, honestly. Large portion of it is. Yeah. Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, the movie made more than they even expected it to. Its opening weekend.
$240 million on its opening weekend?
I think it was 20, because it's Force Awakens. 240.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit less than that.
Which is still crazy.
Yeah. It's stellar.
Yeah.
It's a Star Wars movie. What did people expect?
Right. Yeah. You think it's going to get $1 billion before the year's end?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think isn't that what Force Awakens did?
I don't know if the Force Awakens did.
It was
not.
close.
It crossed 1 billion internationally.
Yeah.
Before the year was over.
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was like real quick.
I could see it.
Don't quote me on that.
Empire and Jedi didn't do as well as
cool.
A New Hope, so I think people might read into that that a little too much. That if it's not going to do as well as The Force Awakens, but like that's still really damn good for how movies go. And there's not too much else I wanted to say about this.
Yeah, and everything that I had that I want to say is just kind of like it's not really in front of me right now for some reason.
Yeah. I do think you should absolutely see this movie. I think it's probably my second favorite Star Wars movie.
Your first being
Empire. Yeah, I don't
it's
think
up there for me.
I don't think anybody could beat what Empire did.
Will ever top Empire.
Yeah, I mean Empire is like one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And while The Last Jedi was an incredible movie, it's got a lot of baggage for me, and that's why I don't rank it as high. But, and you know, the prequels have their own set of issues, and I have some issues with Return of the Jedi, and I don't know, I'm a very weird Star Wars fan. I'm kind of picky with how I am about Star Wars. It comes from, like, loving all the Star Wars games, and I have this, like, total different vision of backstory for these characters because they were so well explained and thought out, and they had so much freedom in the early 2000s, and we don't get that now, and it's kind of scary. To say the least. So I'm just glad that we get a Star Wars movie every year. That's cool.
That's cool.
I want more. I want more than one Star Wars movie every year. I think it's kind of unfair that comic book movie lovers get like 4 a year, and us Star Wars fans get 1 a year. And like if you're like me, I wasn't crazy about Rogue One. I'm not excited for the Han Solo movie. So like I really get excited for a Star Wars movie every 2 years now.
I know I'm the odd one out again because I genuinely loved Rogue One. I liked it better than I did A New Hope. I liked it. It's probably my fourth favorite. I don't think you're one out.
Like I loved Rogue One as well.
I thought it was incredible. I think it needed about 20 extra minutes. Which, speaking of, the Gareth Edwards cameo in this was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, he's standing next to the guy who was like sold.
Yeah, I thought that was a neat little touch. Akbar dying caught me off guard.
Yeah, I did not expect that.
Mm-hmm.
Nien is still alive for some reason.
Because he's awesome.
Yeah.
Duh. He's a badass.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of him, you need to play Knights of the Old Republic. Those aliens are like fucking everywhere.
Or don't play Knights of the Old Republic. Just skip it. It's fine. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, you probably should. You should be a better person than Josh and play Knights of the Republic.
So this is a special movie episode. Sometimes we do that now. Sometimes we won't. But Star Wars is a big deal to us, and we'd love to hear.
We generally only really do it for really special movies.
Yeah.
Obviously
Blade Runner in this.
I would love to hear from other people what they think about this movie. And if they disagree with me, if they agree with me, I would love to hear either side. I've been spending the last 3 days arguing with all of my friends about these issues. And it's really cool to be able to see how other people view it and to read different opinions on it. It's been really eye-opening because very rarely do I have to spend this much time thinking about a movie to think about like what I really feel about it. So I appreciate
testament to how much it means.
Yeah, there's so much about this movie that I really appreciate, and I can't underestimate enough that even if this was a movie I didn't like, I would still totally appreciate its existence.
Yeah.
So I just had to say that at least. So
it's in my top 5 movies of the year, which it's been a really solid year for movies, so I was debating whether or not it would even break the top 5, but it's in my top 5, so go see this movie. It's great.
I'd say it's probably number 2 for me. Like Blade Runner is still number 1. I will probably go see this more than I saw Blade Runner, but
Blade Runner is just
I feel like it's untouchable. Mm-hmm. Like that's just an absolute masterpiece.
This is maybe number 3.
What's your number 2? That just makes me curious.
Man, I really liked Coco.
I haven't seen that yet. I really need to see that. All right, sorry. Let's not get off topic.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I will say, seeing this, I am extremely excited for how Rian Johnson will treat his own trilogy. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like a lot of that has to do with being like, okay, we're going to establish that it doesn't have to be a bloodline.
Yeah.
It can be someone from nowhere, just some orphans. Like, that I think is going to really empower his new trilogy, whatever that ends up being. Uh-huh. And I think that's going to be a great
probably
thing.
Is a huge statement for what he's doing, whatever it is that he is doing.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else, boys?
No. I love this movie. Ryan Johnson, I love you. Thank you for giving me a good movie.
Thank you for giving us a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a gift.
All right, thanks for listening, you guys, and we will catch you all next week.
See you guys.
Bye.
From the first moment we see Luke Skywalker, he figuratively and literally throws everything we know and love about Star Wars over a cliff, making a massive statement that The Last Jedi is planting a flag in a franchise known for being rooted in its past. Jedi is paving its way into the future of cinema by ditching everything you thought you knew about the Star Wars universe. Every character, story beat, and literal timeline is shifted and unlike what we're used to. This is a movie made by a particular Star Wars fan from the very beginning. Someone whose impressive film history has granted him permission to give us a relative blank slate. While you may not agree with everything about his vision, the Star Wars as you know is gone. And that should be much more exciting than it is intimidating. And we should revel in a time where fans can be passed the torch in carrying what we hold so dear. Star Wars is in mighty good hands, and I can't wait to see how far and far away we go into this galaxy here on out.
This movie isn't just for seasoned Star Wars fanatics. There's a whole generation of kids growing up now who are falling in love with film, storytelling, and space wizards with laser swords because of these movies. A perfect example is, in my second screening, there's a moment of silence during a particular scene in which a little boy in front of me involuntarily gasped and followed it up with a, "Oh snap!" in a voice full of wonder and whimsy. It's easy to get angry as an adult at some little kid taking you out of the experience with that kind of commentary, but it's just as easy to remember having that same sense of discovery the first time I watched Star Wars myself.
The Last Jedi is great. It has great characters, great pacing, a great score. And after seeing it, I'm now assured that nothing in this universe is ever going to be the same. Go and see it. That's it. That's all I have. That's all I have to say. If you guys liked this, be sure to check out the full unedited version of the podcast. Be sure to click like and subscribe, as well as the little notification bell so that you're notified whenever we upload a new video. Tell us in the comments what you thought of the movie, and tell us how wrong you thought we were, or how right you think we are. And just start a giant flame war down there. Just argue amongst yourselves and let us watch from our high seats. Thanks, guys.
Connor. This movie is...
Thank you, George.
You're welcome, Connor.